Very good evening to all. I am Ms. Kritika Padhe and I am a PhD student at ICT. Today we are here to have a brief discussion on a topic. The session of today's session is Policy Towards Startup and Academic Innovation to Develop Biotherapeutics and Vaccines. So I guess it's going to be a very holistic and a kind of thing which would be inclusive, or which would just conjoin many different domains and verticals. Looking forward to have a wonderful session ahead. I thank everyone for your presence. To start with, I would like to introduce the moderator of today's session. I would like to introduce you to Mr. Dr. Jagadeesh Gandla. He is the Chief Operating Officer at Federation of Asian Biotech Associations, FABA. He is an accomplished scientist turned entrepreneur. He has worked with several international entities like the European Union in building mentoring networks, alumni networks, etc. His expertise lies in mentoring people and startups which are towards the healthcare setup, and to mentor them and push them to evolve in those domains. His startup, Dare to Start, aims to help people to make their own startups and also build bilateral ties between Europe and India. Currently, he is associated with FABA. He has completed his bachelor's from the Government Degree College in Biotechnology, his master's in Animal Biotechnology from the University of Hyderabad, and he completed his PhD on cancer pain at Heidelberg University. With this, I would hand over the session to Dr. Jagadeesh Gandla, and he would just take the session ahead. Thank you all. Over to you, sir.
For introduction. So, let's take this panel quite chill. So, the main idea is, what are the policies to encourage startups and also academic innovation, mainly in the vaccines and biomanufacturing? So we saw, I think, the medical devices or digital health is a bit easy compared to vaccines or biomolecules or anything. So I would like to kind of have a session like how to make policies stronger, like in terms of industry or academia or incubators. So please share your views. So first, I would ask everybody, please introduce, and with one question. So what makes you motivated every day to get up and say, this is my day? You just give introduction who you are, and then please tell us like what keeps you motivated going. Okay, maybe we'll start with Dr. J.B. Jacob. You have a mic?
Hi, good evening all. My name is 𝐿 Jacob. I head the research and development group for RH Serums and Vaccines based out of Mumbai. I've been in the industry for close to 20 years now, primarily always in R&D. What excites me to go to work every day is the opportunity to continue learning. There is always the aspect of bringing products to patients and developing new products, etc. But I think there's always an excitement in learning new things that really keeps me motivated.
This is Ramesh Mathur. I don't know. I don't have anything like this is my day or something. Sorry, it's a good question. I wish we had the question circulated earlier. But the thing is, what makes me happy and feel satisfied? Let me put it that way. But it's a satisfaction in my profession is it's a long-term sense of accomplishment, sense of belonging, connected to my profession and to the society at large. So the vaccines is one of those things. If I take my own the current thing, the recent our accomplishment for one of the most complex vaccines, pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, went ahead head-to-head with Prevnar, one of the gold standard in the market. We got an approval on it, for example. That's a sense of accomplishment, but that's a kind of motivates us further. Not only me, my team, some of those guys sitting in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No, it's
Good evening, everybody. I'm Alok Srivastava. I'm a physician, a professor of medicine and hematology at the Christian Medical College. So, what made my day for a long time, many decades, is treating patients and seeing them get well. But from moving from end user of therapeutics and diagnostics over the last 10 years, with support from the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, we have established what's called the Center for Stem Cell Research, which is a unit of INSTEM Bangalore for developing innovative cell and gene therapies. So right now we have enough proof of concept data to move into clinical trials. And how do we do that? It's not easy for academic institutions to interact with industry directly. So you need the startup, but when you are in a non-profit setup, you don't create in India a profit startup. So we've started a Section 8 company, which will then interact with the usual commercial companies. So that's the space we are working at now. As Dr. Sanjay Singh mentioned in the morning, Genova is one of the companies we are collaborating with at the moment to take products forward. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Sanjeev Khosla. I'm heading the Institute of Microbial Technology at Chandigarh. And science is something that keeps me going since probably 1991 when I joined as a PhD student.
Okay.
And today, talking to the students and looking at the raw data, I think that's what gives a kick every day morning. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Visu. I lead Life Science Incubation at IKP Knowledge Park. So regarding what keeps me motivated, I came back to India to understand how organizations like IKP is one of the science park. They have various grant programs, how they help scientists, students, startups. So when I started, we have a small cohort of students and researchers, and now we have around 350 students, researchers, forming companies, and every day morning visit calls asking how to apply for this grant, how to manage next 5 crores. This is what keeps me motivated.
Fantastic. Then that's actually a great segue to talk about how to manage 5 crores. Who wants to know the answer to that question? Yeah. Well, let's move into that dialogue. Myself, I'm actually Dr. Mahesh Palgat. I've been in India now for about 13 years. I've been before that in the US for about 20 years. So that's a little bit about telling you my age more than in the information that you really wanted to know. And I'm now with Syngene as the Chief Operating Officer. Syngene, for those of you who may not know, is a CRO CDMO that does end-to-end service program, providing solutions for the large molecule segment, the small molecule segment, oligos, peptides, so on and so forth. And that actually leads me to what keeps me going every day, to your question, right? It's the opportunity to bring scientific solutions. It's the opportunity to make a difference. And I'll take a little more time just in terms of background and history on doing this. When you start doing this in an environment where you have a lot of new joinees or a lot of young professionals who really are looking to do this as a career, that is the opportunity that you have of saying, it's not just about the product that I'm making, it's about the lives that I'm changing who are working with us. And I think the biggest thing that we all have the opportunity to say, all of us who are in the healthcare biotech industry, if you will, is to say that we are making a difference to people's lives every day. For those of you who are in the startup and don't know that you've had the opportunity to bring a product to the market which makes a difference, you're still making a difference to the people that you're working with every single day. And that's actually what I find as most motivating.
Thank you. And I might be the odd man out. I'm a chemistry. I did my PhD in that. Working with Agilent Technologies, we bring the technology and solutions of the workflow across the whole industry, and biopharma is one of them. I did my PhD and then I joined Ranbaxy, couple of years work in industry. While I got access to see other side of the table, how the technology company works, that really inspired me to turn around the table, and that's where I started working with Agilent. Currently, I'm responsible for entire India management as a country general manager. But I worked on a bench as a chemist and also worked as an engineer in Agilent. So that journey has been very interesting. And what keep me every day, I think Thank you for asking. I never thought about it, but that's probably my curiosity. My not very optimist guy. Every day I want to make some difference. I think that made me from chemist to now business management, and I'm sure this journey will continue. So, thank you.
Sure.
Good evening, everyone, and I am Professor Vandana Patravale from Institute of Chemical Technology, your host institute. And what keeps me going definitely is my passion. That's teaching and research, both. So you have already seen Dr. Ratnesh Jain and Dr. Prajakta Jain. Both are my masters and PhD students.
Oh.
So basically, creating such students and nurturing their minds is what I aim for. And as everyone here said, yes, by way of making technologies which can go from bench to bedside, really keeps me going. Thank you so much.
Good evening, I'm Madhusudan Rao. I'm CEO of Atal Incubation Center at CCMB. I was at CCMB for almost 30 years as a scientist. And then I kind of published at least more than a dozen US patents, but never could translate even one of them. So that's one pain point. And because I was in academia for a long time, I know the difficulty in translating tech to anybody else outside, either startups or. So that's one thing that motivates me to come up with processes that might ease the tech transfer from academia. Thank you.
I think that's a very good start, sir. You said your pain points, and my first question is actually regarding the same. India is kind of leading the startup bubble right now, or not the bubble, maybe the real revolution. But however, when you look at the life science startups, it's very difficult in terms of novel drugs or vaccines. So as an incubator or as a scientist, so what are the challenges that you are facing? So at CCMB, for example, so you could name couple or suggest couple of things,
Primarily, I think all the innovation takes place in academic institutes, not only in India, elsewhere. But what I see, not being able to take it out to the corporates for testing out as a product, is one of the things I just said was the processes. It's not easy to get into a kind of terms to tech transfer. That's one. So incubators can play a catalytic role in making that happen very well. But that is something that need to happen much more quickly. But the problem is on both sides. What I saw is it's an observation that the innovators that are the scientists, they should also consider it is their job. It is not that it is just they've done something and leave it at that. They should also feel responsible that they should at least put some effort. I'm not saying that the scientists have the skill sets to do the tech transfer on their own, but they should also take it as a responsibility to make sure it goes through the right process so that it goes out. That is something that is very important. I think that's where, like in the West, they give at least one day off for a professor to do something on an entrepreneurial activity, which is something similar should happen, so that the scientists who have done something interesting, they should be able to spend some time to make sure that it goes out. And I think incubators can play a very good role in making that happen, because they are the interface between the startups and the academia. So by coming up with the right memorandum of understanding, I think I see the big problem is in that. For example, I give you one example. Recently, we tried to take transfer of one idea to a company, and when I went to that agency, they said, the parent agency, they said, you get three quotations. Three quotations is three people who are interested in the technology. I took one client to that particular technology. They said, you bring 3 clients, out of that we'll pick one. I mean, it's that kind of a bureaucracy, it's not going to take anywhere. So, one has to be much more flexible, much more trusting in making these things happen. Otherwise, it's going to be a long journey for tech transfer.
Okay, thank you, sir. Maybe Visu, can you also put some light on funding and other aspects here?
Yes. So extending, what are the challenges for the incubators, at least in the biosimilars and vaccine space. I think for most of the other things, infrastructure, there is no problem. Most of the incubators have excellent infrastructure. But when it comes to the biosimilars, most of you might be knowing IMTech has excellent facility. But to build that kind of facilities in incubator, it's very capex intensive, and most startups and academic labs, they don't have access to such kind of things. So this is a huge limitation. And incubators with a limited funding, they won't be able to provide these kind of facilities. IKP is trying to do, and many others are trying. Let's say if somebody want to have a 100-liter GMP grade, which they want to go to regulatory, it's not so easy. Of course, Syngene and other people will have these facilities, but for an early stage academic and a startup, it will be challenging to get those funds. And coming to the volume of funding to the biosimilars and vaccine, I will just quote one of a very well-known funding agency, BIRAC. In early stage, the 900 plus students and startups received this 50 lakh plus grant, which is popularly known as BIG, Biotechnology Ignition Grant. Less than 5% are towards this one, because when they present, the committee feels there is no regulatory clarity where they will go when they are going to a market. They ask so many things for which actually there are no answers available. What will happen when after 2 years it is developed and coming into the market? There is no answer available with anyone. Whereas large companies in the BIRAC and DBT, if you see higher grants like BIPP, 20 crores, 10 crores, these are given. I am not quoting any names, but to large companies, because the companies have the infrastructure and they can bring that money. But for an academic lab and a startup to bring 10 crore co-funding will be a challenge. So that is where I feel it's slightly tilted towards advanced companies, and that is the challenge for the academic labs.
Okay, great. Thanks, Vishwa. So from Madhu sir and Vishwa, yeah, please.
So I think we should differentiate two things here.
I would like to ask our industry dignitaries here, can you explain the path that you are trying to create in terms of promoting academic innovation or attracting startups or mentoring startups? So maybe you can start, Dr. J.B. Jacob, and kind of tell us like how you have some processes for startups or academic innovation.
Yeah. I mean, I can also, maybe give a couple of examples where BSW as an organization has, been having academic collaborations. We've not worked so much with startups, but the collaboration with academic or research institutions has been very strong for us, at least over the last 3 to 4 years. And there's really no lack of interest from both sides, right? I mean, there's a lot of interest from academia to collaborate. There's a lot of interest from industry, and at least from the industry side, one of the bottlenecks is sometimes you get resource constraint, right? I mean, you can't, there's always internal projects that are happening. So academic collaborations, which are sometimes long duration, there is really no immediate tangible visibility of a product or a process coming through. So dedicating resources towards that becomes a challenge, but we still have to do some prioritization and then go forward with some collaborations. And two of the collaborations that we are doing right now, one is with IISc, and this was an excellent fit between a technology platform that BSV had and the research interest that Professor Karthik Sunagar, he's at the Center for Ecological Sciences. He runs a Center for Genomics Research, right? So there's a lot of work on characterizing venoms, snake venoms, and BSV has a technology platform to develop anti-snake venom serum products, right? So it's an excellent match, and a lot of the fundamental research that is required to really make the best product, the best process. That's something that it will take a lot of time and effort for us to do, right? So this is where I think it was very easy for us to reach out to Karthik. He was very interested in doing it. So this is a program that's really working very well. right? So I think the match of interest, I think, was a critical factor in the success. The other is we are doing a project with Dr. Mugdha Gadgil in NCL, right, where they had already developed the technology to do some specific cell line engineering to match to sort of tweak certain post-translational modifications. Again, from our perspective, this is something that we knew could have long-term benefits if we could, really adopt the technology, implement it in some of our processes, right? So I think, finding that right match, then I think a lot of these points about IP, royalties, I think this can come in, but I think as long as there is a will to, really collaborate and make it a success, I think there's a way forward to, do good academic collaborations. And I think in India, at least in the area of novels, vaccines, etc., I think collaborations between academia and industry, I think, are a must. I think we need to somehow make it really work for us to really break this, mindset of, generics and just improving processes to really doing something really new and fundamental. And I'm sure there are a lot of, interesting things happening. I think Dr. Alok has, been working on some novel products, and I know there are some other companies that are working on novels and good collaborations with academic institutes.
Great, thank you. Yeah, maybe Dr. Ramesh Mathur. Yeah.
We do work with academy, universities, funding certain activities that have a mutual interest, and we also work with certain startups where we do lots of them. On an ongoing basis, we also, like any other company, we look at where the value is there, if there is any synergy, if there is any mutual interest. For confidentiality reasons, I cannot disclose, but at least 5-6 startup companies where we have a pretty good interest in terms of investment or sponsoring research, continuing their product development. Those things we do within India. Not, in some cases outside India also we do collaborate with academic institutions. That's there. But having said this, I have just one other thought on this whole thing. Just take there is an environment in India, incubators and BioRack funding, many things are there. However, the regulatory part where it comes in for vaccines or biotherapeutics or in the healthcare field, there is a hump. Somebody has to pass through. That's a challenge for many of the startups, and then they may or may not be able to overcome that. Again, that is related to facility. Of course, there is some minimal, I think in IMCT there is one GMP facility that is coming up, and things like that are there. But that's a big challenge for the startups not having resources within their reach to show the proof of concept, to go to the first phase of clinical trials. That's a challenge. So if you look at the pyramid of supporting all the startups, biotech companies, there is the ladder to reach them, go up, crawl up, or climb up is not very conducive.
Do you recommend something, sir, like how to
streamlining the regulatory? See, for example, working with RCGM. Okay, so most of the products do require or involve molecular biology based. So some level of gene manipulation does happen. So the moment you say have a gene manipulation, then you have to go through the RCGM evaluation. They're increasing the stringency in their processes. Sometimes it is required, sometimes it is totally not relevant at all, irrelevant. But the way the RCGM is set up, it is creating a challenge, undue pressure on the product development. That actually, having said, it's not only on the startup companies, even companies like us, established companies, it delays certain things. Sometimes it is not required. It doesn't add any value, to be honest. So this is something that, when I looked at these programs, I think it is a startup environment, a regulatory as well as funding, facilities, ecosystem, having for all these things to be there.
Right.
Let me just add another component, right, of first
maybe
turn around all those stands so that we can see people. But the one thing that we are all talking about is how does this continuum sort of work? Right? We are talking about academia does a certain number of things that then need to
academia does a certain number of things that then need to move to tech transfer or whatever else so that it starts to see light of the day, and then eventually commercialization. And therefore, I think JB made a good point. Academia industry collaboration need to happen. We are not so great in that. There's a number of studies that have been done on what can make those better. But the fundamental two things that I believe we need to address in this background is the following, right? One is trust. There needs to be a huge amount of trust that needs to happen between industry and academia. Usually there isn't that level of trust that is there on, if I give something, will I get anything back or not? And then the second is respect, which is, do you really know what you're doing versus do you really know what we're doing? And I just want to address that bit maybe by show of hands here, right? Because we have enough of an audience to sort of see how many of us really think about startups or even academics. Let's start with academics on exactly what do they bring to the table. So I'll give you 3 options. Raise your hand only for one. How many of you really believe that academics do what they do for option 1, because they want publications, option 2, because they want patents, and option 3, because they want to commercialize something? So let's start with how many of you believe they do it for option 1, which is publications. Wow. I don't think I need to go to the others, but just for the sake of interest. How many of you believe it's for patents? Sorry?
That's where they get funding.
That's where they get funding, yeah.
Publish or perish, right?
Agreed, but I'll come back to that in just a minute. How many of you think they do it for patents? 1, all right, we have 1 taker, 2. Come on, no, don't raise your hand, boys. and then how many of you think really they do it for commercialization? Okay, we are
I think your
options, it's made the point.
Options are not, your options are not necessarily the
only options.
Yeah, because everybody in our center does it for all 3. Absolutely. So,
fabulous, right?
They can.
But
they are told when they start a project, a research subject, they can choose to stop at publication and get the mileage out of it, or they can choose to go all the way
further.
And both are possible.
And you're actually making my point for me, both of you, right? It's about how we perceive it. So you're perceiving it as, we're doing it for all 3. The audience or we all come with a mindset that you're actually doing it for a completely different reason or a primary reason, which may or may not be true, but perception is reality. And that's what I'm getting to, right? So, once we start to break these barriers of which are frankly within our mind, they are not real. That's what at least you two are vehemently trying to tell me. We will not get past that.
I would interrupt there. I think the difference is we both come from such institutes which are of standing and take that path. But in general, if you see all across India, definitely the option which he has given and audience has said yes to it,
is actually the prevailing option, right?
Yeah, I also wanted to make, so you have to also look at the ecosystem of the academic setup also. How many of us, I'll include myself, actually have the knowledge of taking from POC to the next level, right? So it also depends on that. So most of the basic scientists know to take it up to particular stage. Now the institutions actually are bringing in capabilities in their own institutions, and our institute is not very different, where people know what to do the next stage, right? So that hand-holding, whether it's from industry or whether it is from within the institution, is coming slowly. But the first part was the reductionist part, where we wanted to know what was the right thing to actually take it up to the next. So I think so. It's an ongoing process. You will see changes over a period of time. Of course, 90% of the things that are done in academics would be publications. Otherwise, you would not go to the next 2 stages. So that's what from my point.
And fair point. Yeah, Ramesh.
Just extension of what you just said. See, what happens in academia or industrial, CSIR institutes? You come up with a novel concept, and then you should file a patent. Meaning, it has a applied value, right? So then the industry can come in, like us, we would license the patent and then develop it further. But again, in between the academia and this thing, there is again a legal attitude. We do that scores, to be honest. We have license now within India and outside India to do that. But there, within India, there needs to be some kind of a maturation process is required, in my opinion. A lot of institutions have their own way of looking at things, but there is some kind of development or a maturation is required.
And I think I'll actually end on that so that I hand it back to you and I don't moderate. But it's frankly exactly that, right? There is that maturation that is required. There is that ecosystem that needs to be built. There is that mindset that we all need to change. And so I think, the more conversations of this nature that we have where we recognize what it is that can be done to bring us all on the table together. And, to your point of, this is something that, yes, we know eventually we do want to do, but we don't necessarily think of it as that's what they really are going to respect me for. Industry is never going to worry about what am I interested in, and vice versa. Till we get across those barriers, we are not going to make enough progress. And that's actually the point that I wanted to make. Hopefully that's come across. Thanks.
Sure.
Right, that's why startups are advertising the two sides. I see it very, that startups are.
You want to speak something?
Academia and startup. It should be industry and startup and academia, because this is the for-profit side and this is the funded, government-funded side.
Yeah, and that's where the question comes in is, do we have enough of that ecosystem to sustain that startup, right? So I'm sure everyone knows India has gone from on the global innovation index from 86 to 46th position or so. So we've dramatically improved our position in the last 6 years. That said, we also have a large number of startups. However, our approach to the startups is, can I get money from only one or two limited sources? And I think that's the other barrier that we are facing in terms of the progression of those startups.
I have answer, but I don't know if I get 30 seconds. I can answer.
Yeah, please do.
So my concern, and this is your word, the trust actually that has to be developed.
The trust that we are talking about developing is about, can we do this transaction independent of finances? Because if with startups, academia is ready to share their risk with startups. No professor will say, no, give me first 1 million, I'll license you. No, go commercialize it. If you are able to do, I will take my money then. But can industry do that with me? No. If you go to Sanofi, if you go to GSK, they say, no, if you want to do that, go to Europe. In India, no big industry puts money, nobody takes risk with the startup. So that is can we make it money independent? Then the trust comes in.
Absolutely, exactly my point. Can we make it money independent? But frankly, it's not really sustainable. Therefore, these limited sources of funding that we continue to count on for the startup ecosystem to evolve, that needs to broaden, that needs to diversify. And where will that diversification come from if you're all working towards that same objective? Because then many more people are willing to participate and take a risk along with you.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, don't take it personally. Your startup, if you would like to have funds, but without giving any equity, you would like to receive funds? That's a challenge.
Yeah.
I answer that. Yes, we are not looking for funds. In fact, I tell you, in India, nobody is looking for funds. There is a lot of money. If you go to make a building or an airport, you have billions to make an airport. And it will also take 10 years to get the returns back on the land. But when it goes to pharma, it's not about the equity, it's about the confidence you have in me that I can actually have 5% or 10% chance to deliver what you are thinking. But you are thinking, this guy has to make a medicine, go to the market, make the profit and then come back to me. But no, you are there, you have done the wheel. Why should I reinvent? Let me make the good POC for you. Let me, go to Syngene say, okay, I'll give you a credit of 2 crores, do the analytics studies, do it. If it works, I will share the profit also. I don't want money and share the equity.
The thing is, that's where the ecosystem. So you see, the industry also should be, putting aside some budget where they can take some risk, you lose. But that ecosystem is, kind of both ways. It's not only one way. The other way is startups look for venture capital funding, for example. But that's a different ball game. It's a different nasty game.
If I can add on that, but before let me turn the table because it looks like I'm first off from academia and CEO, so I think let me sit this way. I think it's a great conversation. Probably nobody has answer in an individual capacity. I think we need to work together. And if I represent few my thoughts about the academia and the startup, if I see the mega trend in last 10 years, academia industry collaboration was more about the upskilling, knowledge sharing, collaborations of publications. But I think time has changed. I see now there is a time for us to bring academia to more strategic side of the industry. And it's happening, I would say. As I said before, I'm optimist, but I have some facts to share with you. We have been working with ICT and in a long way, creating that knowledge sharing and upskilling, campus hiring. But I think it's time has come where we give them the placement on the front desk and a strategic planner. Now when we work with IIT, we have incubator center now. We give the access to student to the workflow which are need of the industry. So probably when they go for their CEO of the startup or the job, they can do something which probably the industry is lagging behind. And this is where I think we need to make the commitment that first, I rightly said the trust, the confidence, but also making a start. Somewhere you need to enroll for that. The facility which we have in the IIT Delhi, they were now working on the PAT side of the workflow, which is very difficult 5 years before to think even before that this can be possible. But somewhere we need to enroll with the confidence, and I can see it's on the right directions. With ICT, we recently even changed our way of even recognizing the student. We used to maybe have a cash award or a trophy. Now we are sponsoring 1 week exclusive training into the campus. Let them see the industry as an employee, and that can be a credential for them. When you come to the startup, we realize that now it's a need for us to accommodate startup. It's not just academia. And that's why we venture with the C-Camp and with the Dr. Taslim, because we truly believe that the startups are not able to claim full potential of their work because of the infrastructure. Our role comes when it comes to the analytical side of the characterizations. If they have a right data, right analytics, they can claim more than what they were getting today. So that's the initiative with the C-Camp, that we give them the access of technology, let them get their merit full of their work, get them grow, and I'm sure that's where eventually ecosystem will grow. So, just to be on optimist side of the line, that we are making inroad and very much looking forward on that.
I think we all can be optimists, and the fact of the matter is that, look, it's about having these sorts of conversations so that we get the awareness up. And I think all three of us have talked about this. Ramesh talked about it, JB talked about it. I know you've talked about it. I'm going to say that, and this is again in the public domain. We've gone and funded research projects in IISc in the last 6 months to the tune of several crores, with the pure understanding that this is for the fact that we want that research to progress. So we are all doing it. We are all doing it at different stages of the value chain. But these are, to me, these are still isolated examples. These are still not the mainstream ways of working that we need to get to through those true components that I mentioned, right? We need to work on trust. We need to work on respect. That is where we will all feel comfortable partnering all along the value chain.
Excuse me, sir. Actually, I am Vijayanand. I am a startup company. I have a startup company, BioPioneer. Actually, whatever you have asked the first question regarding the publication and patent and so in that regard, I am telling that everybody have their own career. Without publication, you will not get the PhD, first thing, because I am coming from an academic scene only. So that's why we need a publication. So whatever funding was given at that time, government policy is there, and the funding is only for publication, crores of funding. Now the whatever funding is given, that is for startup, and we are kind of startup is a main player, and the agency whatever don't take is negative, they are playing us like just khilona.
When you say agency, just make sure I understand
what incubation center or any other, suppose some training program they are doing, or some pitch competition. I don't know how many pitch competition biotech people or biopharma people are got funded. I don't know. Even if Bairaka has also online pitch, they have BioAngel, they have come, they don't have their own trust to fund us. They are telling that. Even if few days before one competition they have, if they will get a single also for raising fund, that is very difficult. They basically the trust, whatever we are telling, that is a trust, and it is very difficult in that contest.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Totally agreed. Trust, trust is a very, very key component of it all.
Yeah, so I think let's kind of move on to the next question. So, I mean, one thing that I would like to kind of highlight. So people are saying that nothing happens in India, nothing moves in India, right? So I landed in India just 6 days back. I was in Europe for 11 years, and I worked with European Union. And I would say biotechnology or anything related to life sciences, India is doing far better than Europe. Maybe you are comparing with the US, that might be a different ball game. I was sitting in some of the WHO panels with regarding vaccine strategy, with COVID vaccines and everything. So at least Germans were scared of India. So they were telling, India is doing so much in vaccines, we have to build our own infrastructure. So they were scared. So my 2 cents is that we are doing great, and this conversation is to be more grateful, to be more great. So let's move on to the next questions, mainly for the academia, because they are like the main players. So, ma'am, I think I'll start with you, especially with the trust and respect, what Dr. Balgat has said. And I think you are doing great in what you are doing. So how would like you to translate to your next generation? Like, how do you mentor people? I mean, the dignitary in the behind said, we have to publish, otherwise we perish in the academia, right? Publish or perish. But now the ball game is different. We have to translate our ideas into startups. So how do you kind of train your students to think in multiple angles,
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. Yeah, I've been lucky, I would say, that I've got ICT platform, and through that platform, at least 21 technologies from my lab have reached industry. Having said that, definitely we need to differentiate. There is some academic work which should go in publications. But wherever you find that application-oriented work which can be commercialized, we tell the students to first patent. And after patent, we do Indian patent. What we do is then immediately we start looking for an industrial partner. And as far as possible, within 3 to 4 months, we have talks with the industrial partner and transfer the technology to them so that they can take it ahead. And when they take international patent, as you know, that has to be taken within 12 months. So when they file, that is when ICT really comes into picture very, very fiercely. And we have our own tech transfer cell as well as patent cell in place now. So what happens, meaning talking about how do I mentor people so that this differentiation factor can come? You need to, and being an academician, you need to identify strengths also of your students. It's not that everyone can write a paper. Okay, so there also you need to train them. So training forms a very, very important component there. I have deviated from maybe your question. Can you just repeat?
No, you're doing great, ma'am. I think you're doing good. So you are identifying the strengths of a person,
yes,
whether they are academic or can translate.
Absolutely. So you need to identify that what is commercializable and therefore patent first, and otherwise definitely after patenting also you can publish. So we do that also. Many times it so happens is when commercial angle comes in, when, for example, I'm working a lot, say, in lipid-based drug delivery systems. So when we have suppliers of lipids coming to us, they want that their name should be there in paper so that they get,
name.
Papers are well read by scientific population, so they also get outreach. So there specifically, we make it sure that even if we are not giving the full details of the formulation, we are giving major features highlighting the preclinical data, in vitro cell line data, etc., so that they get their share also. So I think that is something which we need to do, and we have been successfully doing it.
Great, ma'am. Thanks. Sir, would you answer?
So, a lot of things ma'am has already covered. I'll just talk about 2-3 separate issues that actually we've been trying to do in IMTech and in CSIR in general, which is training. Now, training is not just about actually training people in molecular biology. Of course, for example, in IMTech we have a Merck Center for high-end training, where not only for example, people are being trained for the youngsters are being trained, but even from industry, a lot of people actually come in and get trained on things that they don't know, from a simple gel running to high-end equipment. So that's something that we in CSR actually are trying to do it in a much bigger way now. And this is not alone. For example, in COVID, we realized one of the training that was not there either with academics or with industry was working in biosafe labs. So that is something that actually we are now promoting a lot. Of course, there are now very stringent rules for working in biosafety labs. So that's also being introduced from our end, so that people, so almost like 2 to 3 such workshops are being done,
right?
For example, in IMTech. Third, and I think so, this he pointed out, is that beast of regulation.
Yeah.
Right? And I think so that's something that most products I have heard of. I've been very less time in this particular, but most products actually fail at that regulatory level, whether it's RCGM or GEAC or whatever you want to call it. I've made a point, I sit in both.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by fail?
Fail means there are issues related to regulations where startups, for example, are not aware of. So when it comes to RCGM, they don't know. My wife works with CCAMP, and she tells me, she's in the indigenization part of the CCAMP, and she tells me many times you don't even know what control has to be used in the diagnostic kit, right? So simple things like this is something that from academic side we can actually always try to build into this thing. And finally, we train our students, especially in IMTech, in, for example, GMP facilities. So we're coming up with, Ravi would have talked to you about the GMP facility that we're coming up with. We already have GLP facilities, and so those are kind of things that at our level we are trying to do, and any hand-holding that needs to be done, especially with startup, is something that we really want to take it up at the CSR level, and it's being done. So that's from my point of view. Of course, what she said was the most important thing, but yeah, from our side. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Sir,
Can
would
I,
you also? Yes, ma'am, please.
Just 2 things, where generally academicians fail, meaning this is a general thing, is documentation, which industry always says. Documentation is weak. And other is not using CFR compliant instruments, etc., so that they can directly take it scale up level. So these 2 things, if academia keeps in mind, I think things would be much easier in translating technologies also.
Right. Sir?
So I think we are almost out of time, but
we'll take like 5 minutes more.
Yeah, just very briefly. I think, as was mentioned earlier by somebody, it's the organizational, institutional mandate, focus and priority that you convey not only to students, but actually to the scientists working there. And a big gap when it comes to medical applications is to ensure that the initial discussion involves clinical people as well, so that the purpose for which they are working is clearly defined. Because without that, you go off on a tangent, do something, and when you come back to the regulators, they say, well, who really wants this? So that's one. The second is the environment that the leadership there creates in ensuring that the scientists get their benefits at all three stages, as was mentioned earlier. So you have to be very clear that there's nothing against publication as long as you're able to file your IP on time. And for that, one of the things we have done is to actually have a retainership with a legal company that they can call any time, on call, to say we pay a certain number of hours a month, and so they are available for discussion. I don't know if there's any other institute academic in the country that have a retainership with that, because there are only few scientists who do that. And then, of course, the path to translation. So you may actually, we have a GMP facility, and by the way, we have some capacity that if startups want to use, we'd be happy. It's a DBT supported center, so it's available. But you can transfer at the point of POC and tech, or you can take it forward because the government of India is supporting, at least our phase 1 gene therapy clinical trial is supported by the government of India. So it's a unique situation. So I think there are different models possible, and things are evolving, and it's possible to do.
Great. Yes, sir, please.
Yeah. See, when obviously the source of innovation is what to be academia, but the responsibility of tech transfer is also is left today with the innovator, which is not fair because they are not skilled at all to do that particular thing. So one of the success stories in the West is because of the tech transfer offices in various places, and we don't have them. In fact, we have them. That's the problem, which are very, somebody was rehabilitated to, to take care of the tech transfer offices.
So we've outsourced it.
You are a private company. You can do that.
No. We've done it as INSTEM CSCR DBT Autonomous Institute.
The autonomy is what brings a certain privileges, which I think doesn't happen. I thought that's what I was trying to say.
I think we need good TTOs, technology transfer offices. That's where we need to train people, and we need good regulatory affairs. That's where we need to train people. And we are running short of time. I mean, there's also questions in the audience. So, do you want to quickly ask? Yeah. Okay.
I'm Chandra from Present Essences. Actually, one of the worries I have now after hearing this, and academics becoming some kind of R&D driven commercialization kind of thing. If you look at India, the amount of R&D spending is minimal compared to other countries, even small countries like Korea. My biggest worry is that if academics thinks from the beginning that I have to do something, commercialization, I think that is purely, I think it is a serious problem. And second thing is, I think the overall funding in the academic environment, I'm worrisome because I go to IISc, because I come from IISc. Many of the professors, they all started the companies, they think about commercialization, who is going to do real science. I think that's where, if you want to do something big, if you look at it the way the way we do the drug discovery, the amount of money the Western world is spending, starting from artificial intelligence to a whole lot of other technology platforms, we are much lagging behind. I think there's a lot of money has to come into academics. Academics should do the academics. I think some of the institutions like ICTs and should become translational centers where the basic research can happen and take it forward. I think this is my kind of, I felt
fantastic. I mean, there's a kind of race for startups, but you are kind of coming back to the core that we need to stick to, because if suddenly new pandemic comes, great. That's really great. Yeah, thank you so much. So I thank everybody for sharing your thoughts. I mean, this is an endless discussion. I think there's no conclusion, I would say. discussions has to happen. And thanks for startups to kind of share your stories, your pain points, because we are here to listen. Everybody are here to listen. And one more thing I would like to kind of say is that I represent an organization called Federation of Asian Biotechnology Association, based out of Hyderabad. I work under Professor Redana. We are trying to address the same challenges. So FABA, established in 2005 as a non-profit organization, mainly to bridge industry and academia. So we have FABA Academy to upskill people. We have Power Entrepreneurship last year launched to help startups. So if anybody interested, please contact our manager or myself. So we'd be happy to take any programs. And once again, thank you everyone. Thanks to the audience.